Mark Schlereth joining us live. Fox Sports, 3 rings, 2 Pro Bowls. Yeah, I was saying this. The Russell Wilson thing looked like, literally, I'm reading these stories a year ago. It's like, it's the end of the franchise. And I'm like, I don't know. It sounds like you're connected to the organization. It sounds like they wanted Bo Nix. Like that was the guy they wanted. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think when you look at it, I mean, I know you're not going to get Caleb Williams, right?
Right.
But I think the next guy, and this is not one of those, this always drives me crazy about the draft, and this is why the same teams are always drafting in the top 10 every year. Pick a quarterback, any quarterback. Pick a receiver, any quarterback. Doesn't matter which one, just any of them. They're all the same. Well, they're not all the same. And I think they did their due diligence. One of the reasons they worked out a guy like Caleb Williams, one of the reasons they met with guys like Jaden Daniels, one of the reasons they went and saw Drake May was to compare what we want, what we're looking for, and does our guy Bo Nix give us that? So I think there's no question that the due diligence was done and that Bo Nix was the guy that felt like, hey, man, he's quick release and he gets the ball out on time. And I always say, accuracy and timing. And I will tell you, you can't be accurate in the National Football League without being on time. So being on time and accuracy go hand in hand. If you're late with the football, you won't be accurate with the football. It just doesn't work. It's like a pitcher. Everything's got to be in sync. There's a kinetic chain that goes into throwing the football. So this is the guy that to me was the most on time and the most accurate in college football. And then I hear he doesn't have a big arm. Who gives a rip doesn't have a big arm? When was the last time you saw somebody throw it 67 yards for a touchdown in the air? It doesn't. Yeah. You don't have time to do it. It doesn't happen in the NFL. By the way, every deep ball, every go ball that is thrown in the NFL comes off of 5-step drop timing with no hitches. Meaning that ball is out. As an offensive lineman, I always used to listen for it. Like what route combination, what's the timing of that throw? Because that 5-yard or that 5-step drop that's out right now, I can actually treat that like a 3-step drop. And that ball is going to come down somewhere between the numbers and the sideline at about 42 to 47 yards. Because if you hold it on a 7-step drop and you run a go route, the receivers will outrun the quarterback's arms. The only time you'll see that next season, a 65, 70-yard ball in the air that's complete is on a Hail Mary. That's it. So the big arm thing, no, if you've got timing, you're accurate. The big arm thing doesn't matter. The other thing, really quick, the Fangio effect. Everybody plays that shell defense now, which really Fangio really brought back in the league. Everybody's playing a form of cover 3. Everybody's playing that shell defense, which is saying you're not getting over the top of us. We're going to keep 2 guys deep. So what you're going to have to do is throw it underneath. That's the whole league. That's the way the league operates. So wouldn't you like to have the most accurate, the most on-time football player that there is in the draft at the quarterback position? I would argue this. The guy who's set up to have the best situation, the best fit of all the quarterbacks drafted is Bo Nix going to Denver with Sean Payton.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just thinking as you were talking about that, Mark. Brady had one great deep threat his whole career in New England. Moss. Mm-hmm. It's the only great receiver ever had he didn't win a Super Bowl with. When they had Welker and Edelman and Deion Branch, and it was death by 1,000 cuts and Gronk, you couldn't stop them. They were the best third down team. By the way, the fastest deep threat in the league is Tyreek Hill, and his quarterback doesn't throw a great deep ball. Kansas City this year, since they let go of Tyreek Hill, they've been a death by 1,000 cuts underneath offense, and they've won Super Bowls. So to your point, the deep ball is one of those, it's a very 70s, 80s thing, but not that many teams that are great throw consistently a deep ball. Now, I do want to ask you about this, because the draft, and I think it was due time, really went heavy offense. I mean, the best pass rusher went to the Colts, middle of the first. Is it swinging too much that way? Like, as an offensive guy, or do you think it's time, or did you look at that draft and go, okay, this is crazy town. There's all these good defensive players. They're just sitting there on the board.
Yeah, I think it's one, all the rules are bent towards being a great offense. So people are going after the offensive players. But I will tell you, like, again, you're drafting quarterbacks who are probably rated, You've got him rated on a scale of 1 to 10. You've got a quarterback at a 7.2, and you're picking him over a defensive player that you have rated as a 9.8. That is crazy town to me, because I think football players are the most important thing to have on your roster, really good football players. And I love Jim Harbaugh's comments about offensive linemen are weapons. They're the tip of the spear. The offensive line doesn't need the receiving core for the offensive line to be good. The quarterback, the offensive line doesn't need the quarterback to be good for them to be good, or the running back core to be good for the offensive line to be good. But every other position in football needs the offensive line to play well. Otherwise, receivers can't catch the ball, quarterbacks can't stay upright, and running backs can't run the football. And so, yeah, there is a real bent toward, and this is why the same teams draft in the top 10 every year, because they're drafting athletic skill, they're drafting hope, they're drafting promise, they're selling you hope, they're selling you promise, they're kicking the can down the road, they're telling you, hey, we're one receiver away from being a Super Bowl contender. There's never been a team one receiver away from being a Super Bowl contender. Not one receiver has ever led a team to winning a Super Bowl. It just is not the way the league works, but that's what they're selling. So your team is selling you hope, and bottom line is your team stinks because they'll be drafting the top 10 next year again and again and again and again, because they're not building a football team. They're building a fantasy football team, and fantasy football does not win in the National Football League. Flat out, never has, never will.
I thought what I always do on the Monday after the draft, I say, I can't project your entire draft class. But if I take your free agent signings and your top 2 picks, maybe your top 3, I'm pretty good on those. And I thought Chicago fundamentally changed their organization. Keenan Allen, Caleb Williams-Rome Odunze, Gerald Everett, DeAndre Swift. These are really productive NFL players. And my entire life, Chicago's always had their best players on defense. It's just funny. When you think Bears, I just think defense. When I think Washington, I think Joe Gibbs O-line. When I think McVay and the Rams, I think clever. I think smart culture. Niners, I think of Shanahan's offense. There are certain things in this league, they're just imperative, intuitive. They are what they are. And I felt like, the Chicago Bears, we'll look back in 20 years, this will be the draft class. That's how it felt to me. Yeah. Am I nuts and over the top?
No, I don't think you're nuts. I mean, we don't know what Caleb Williams is going to be. Odunze, as you mentioned, we're not sure about that. I thought what they did getting DJ Moore a year ago and then going out and getting Keenan Allen was absolutely incredible. And I looked at it, and you've got a tight end in Komet that I think can really play. You went out and got the running back that I think is really good. Like, I don't know that you needed to invest in another wide receiver when there were, top offensive linemen that were sitting there for you to take. So I probably would have gone in a different direction there. But yeah, it looks that way. I love Shane Waldron. We didn't talk about that addition, but as an offensive coordinator. But one of the things that resonates with me, and think about the first 4 quarterbacks taken in this draft, they all went to defensive head coaches. And one thing about that, and Steve Young, you and I used to work at ESPN, and Steve Young used to say this all the time, that defensive coaches oftentimes, because they're worried about the defense and they're trying to protect the defense, aren't the best place for a young offensive quarterback to develop. And it's just interesting to me that all 3 of these quarterbacks, or all 4 of these quarterbacks, went to a defensive head coach. And it'll be interesting to see exactly how those guys develop, from that perspective, because as you know, defensive-minded head coaches, they're going to err on the side of conservatism most of the time. They're going to run the football. They're going to make sure that they protect their defense in certain situations because, they've got a vested interest being defensive coaches to protect that defense. So it'll be really interesting to see exactly the development of these guys and how they end up. But, on the surface, on paper, I love what Chicago did. Like I said, at number 9, I probably would have gone with a prominent offensive lineman, but that's me. That's what I think wins. But as I always say, if the games were played on paper, I'd have spent a lot less time on an operating table. They're not. They're real. And you've got to win lines of scrimmage if you're going to win in the National Football League.
Fox Sports, Mark Schlereth. Good seeing you, buddy.
You too, bud. Take care, man. Have a great summer.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. It's me, Uncle Colin. Subscribe here to get the latest from the herd, including exclusive behind-the-scenes videos and more, wherever you may be, however you may be watching. Thanks again for making us part of your day.